Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of VCTV. We are talking about fashion, shopping, and beauty. Little do may people know, beauty and the beauty market or industry is actually a huge market, a huge business, and a huge area of opportunity that's kind of gone a little untapped in many ways when it comes to venture and entrepreneurship. But we're going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about why, and we're also going to talk about where things are moving around fashion and how does shopping or the changing of shopping and marketplaces fit into all this as well. So we're a lot to talk about here on VCTV. But before we jump in, a big thank you to your audience. Thank you so much for tuning in as you do here every day for VCTV. And make sure if you like what you're hearing, you're clicking that subscribe button to hear more as we have episodes all day, every day from different regions around the world with a great set of investors and an awesome cast as we continue to switch that out around different topics, industries, and regions around the world. And those that are tuning in, if you're liking what you hear and you want to be on a show like today with other investors, do reach out. We'd love to have you and find the right set of investors for you to join. And entrepreneurs, you've got less than 60 days. This is a great opportunity for you to jump up on our virtual stage here at VCTV, to share with us your product, your company, your service, to get real-time feedback, but also building a foundational relationship with us as investors or people who are interested in your industry. It's a great opportunity along with exposure to our live audience. Do reach out to the team and or myself, and we would love to find the right opportunity for you. And a big, huge thank you to the LATOKEN team and to Maria and the entire organization for making VCTV possible every single day and bringing us all together to share with you our thoughts and insights. And with that, I'm your host, Kyle Ellicott. Let's go ahead and dive in and introduce each and every one of our esteemed investors who have joined us from around the world to share on these particular topics today. First and foremost, Gianpaolo, welcome back to the show. A little intro and a little introduction, a little intro and a little background for the audience.
Thank you, Kyle. Welcome, everybody. My name is Gianpaolo Parigi. I'm an investor, a serial entrepreneur. I'm on the board. I'm a principal of American Colonial Capital on the board as a president of International Capital Markets. I'm a senior advisor to KingSwap, which is a Singapore-based decentralized finance platform. I'm the chairman of a single family office in New York. And I'm happy to be here again with you today.
Absolutely, and happy to have you as well. It's been a pleasure to continue these conversations on VCTV with you as your experience is so vast from family offices to venture to entrepreneurship and in different industries. So thank you so much for joining us. Julio, same to you. It's a pleasure as always. I know your specialty falls in these particular areas, NY Bay Capital, New York Bay Capital. But before we tease into that, a little intro and a little background for everybody.
Greetings from New York City. And of course, thank you to our hosts, Maria, the LATOKEN team. I vote for you. Might be too late to vote for the US presidential election, but I vote for entrepreneurship and I vote for LATOKEN, VCTV, Kyle, and Maria. My name is Julio Marquez. I run New York Bay Capital together with a few partners. It's a combination investment bank / investor that puts capital into interesting businesses. When our clients are very large, we simply advise them. But when our clients are small, we invest in them as opposed to necessarily collecting fees. It's more like we like to invest. We like to help interesting companies grow. And among our interests, we have 4 or 5 verticals, and one of them happens to be fashion, specifically fashion design. We've backed some fashion designers before, and we still do, and I'll tell you more about it in a second. But it's not a bad time to get into changes that are happening in fashion, that in many ways have been accelerated by the health crisis we're living, and other changes that were already coming anyway, because people are interested in improving not only how clothes are sold, but how they're made. And what kind of impact does that have environmentally? I think so. Those are some of the trends that are causing people to invest money into this, multi-billion-dollar industry. With that's my intro.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Julio. And again, Gianpaolo, welcome both of you. So I want to dive right in around fashion and then marketplaces and shopping along with beauty. And just to throw one stat out there as I'm pulling it up here, there's been a few different reports that are looking at, for specifically in beauty, the skincare market to be almost $40 billion over the next 4 years. And this was from a report that came out in April earlier this year. But bigger picture, we're looking at almost $750 billion, or trillion, pardon me, so $750 billion that the beauty market, cosmetics, skincare, and the like, could exceed here just alone in the United States by 2025. And I want to bring that up because, again, I feel like the beauty industry has gone kind of untouched or untalked about, and it should be highlighted because of so many great opportunities. But before we get deep into that, I would love to hear from each of you your views on the current state or trends around these three areas of fashion, beauty, and then the marketplaces that sit in between on how we buy them. Gianpaolo, let's start with you.
Yes, well, I mean, as you have mentioned in the introduction, I mean, we are delving into three sectors tonight that are each of them trillion or multi-trillion dollar sector in its own right. So I mean, in their own right. So I think it's really a gigantic component in the overall economic space that we are trying to deal with tonight. Well, what we have seen as trends, I mean, what we have seen during this very weird 2020, we've seen online spending, increasing, surging, because of course COVID kept most everyone else at home. But what we have maybe forgotten to mention is that the offline purchases, the offline consumptions have decreased, and they decrease in a way that it didn't unfortunately offset the growth on the online business. If you think of the fashion industry itself, fashion industry alone has a net loss of about $640 billion as a result of the imbalances between the traditional, Main Street purchasing and the online purchasing. So there are $640 billion lost in sales that have not been made up by the increase, by the surge of what's happened online. So of course, this would, evoke, conjure up, ideas of, having thousands and thousands of jobs in danger, because obviously many companies are suffering. Some companies went belly up, and others are suffering. And there are, of course, millions of people around the world that are concerned about their future. So I think we need to put a great attention to these sectors and trying to correct those imbalances. And maybe we can suggest some food for thought tonight, in this brief conversation.
Absolutely, and couldn't agree more. And again, that marketplace, that shopping, the commerce section, where these two industries meet, being fashion and beauty, there's huge opportunities still to be had and to bring a lot of those individuals into this world. I mean, we saw a surge in purchasing around Shopify and Etsy, both platforms that, again, are very focused on these industries, and I think will continue to do so. But Gianpaolo, you're bringing up a great point and a great area of opportunity that we'll come back to here in just a moment. Julio, to you, what are you seeing as the current state of these few areas that we've been talking about? Again, fashion, commerce, and beauty.
Well, first, we have to remember that these areas, specifically fashion and beauty, have always been very competitive. Everybody knows that the cosmetics industry is extremely competitive. It's got good margins, but to get the attention of the consumer really requires massive investment. Even the best products, products that might arguably be better for whatever reason than what's out there, have trouble, penetrating, gaining market share, and moving up in the world. It's because of the capital requirements of the larger cosmetics industry, it's almost impossible to penetrate the market, even if you have a fantastic new product made of wonderful new materials. Very, very difficult situation. The retailing part of it is also very competitive. We've seen stores like Sephora and others, to try to really get into that business, but it requires massive investment. So, from an entrepreneurial perspective, it's, I could not think of an industry that is it's more difficult to, and so full of interesting ideas and very creative people. But it's very difficult for them to access the capital. And then even the capital sources themselves know that, companies encounter the kinds of problems that can only be solved with even more and more and more money. So, within the, how competitive the industry is, and fashion is no different. I think that the current crisis has provided some avenues for some people to try to, rise to the top, maybe faster than they otherwise would have been able to. So instead of focusing on the pandemic as a sort of a source of problems that has created a crisis and is making companies go belly up, you have to really see it more as an opportunity. You have to assume that there's always a risk of going belly up because that's the nature of the industry, but that maybe this allows some lucky brands, some lucky entrepreneurs to be noticed if they do something different, or if they address whatever myriad problems that exist. If you address some of them in an interesting, creative way, efficient way, you might be able to gain that notoriety. And so that's the type of investments we're looking for, solutions to problems that existed before, but that maybe are a little bit even more accentuated by the current situation. That's the general state of affairs. We can get specific soon, but
let's do it. Let's get it.
Difficult problem.
It is a difficult problem. And how is technology playing a role in this is a bigger question too. I mean, where does technology, whether it's deep technologies like AI, so artificial intelligence, blockchain, machine learning, and others that we've spoken about here on VCTV, or just general technologies at a whole? I mean, whether it's around supply chains and manufacturing, do drones and robotics play a role in this? I mean, I'm throwing out a lot of big technologies and buzzwords for the reason of where do these intersect? Right? When we look at fashion, let's break this down. Fashion, where does technology play a role and intersect into the future of fashion as we look at it? We know where fashion came from. Where does fashion go from here? And Gianpaolo, let's start with you, and Julio will come back because I know you've made some investments in this area you want to talk about. So same with Gianpaolo. Fashion, technology, where are those intersection points that you're seeing?
Well, I mean, we're in the realm of Industry 4.0 anyway, so fashion is a part of that space. And we've said many times in this venue that no longer manufacturing companies can survive if they do not become, to an extent, technology companies as well. So fashion, again, is no exception. Shopping online, anything that regards this space has to be completely overawed by technology. I just want to bring to the attention of our audience that the EBIT of the companies in this industry may fall on average at about 14 percentage points this year on year, 2019 over 2020. And that would bring the EBIT into negative territory. Definitely technology may help and will help the adoption of artificial intelligence, the digital transformation, are, here to stay, and they will become really, I would say, mainstay of the fashion industry as well. But they will not happen so quickly as to reverse the course of the events for this year. So we are seeing companies that are, as I say, going belly up, that are incurring losses. And no matter how we can be thinking a positive that behind every crisis lies an opportunity, which I'm sure this is the mantra that we've been repeating through the pandemic, and I, for one, completely subscribe to it. But reality is that when you have companies that are suffering, and you're a founder, a shareholder, or even a top manager, you have to do better than just recite the mantra. You have to find solutions, and these would open up the space for, financiers and investors to. I mean, if you go look at the panorama from, let's say, the 39,000 feet perspective, you could see what are the synergies that could be implemented in the market, even on a cross-border basis. And you can see how you can implement technology and blend technology with those synergies that you can, execute at M&A level, because, of course, there will be a huge consolidation opportunity in the market, in fashion and shopping, even in the beauty industry at large. And again, each one of those industries is at least $1 trillion industry in its own right. So we're talking about major tectonic plates shifting, over the next 2 years, as a result not only of the pandemic, but as a result of the transformation that the consumers have completed to adopt over the course of 2020. COVID having been just the final incidental element that has contributed, to give the final push. But this year, about 35 million Americans have been shopping online for the first time, and about 320 million Chinese have been shopping online for the first time as a result of the pandemic. So people that were not used to go online because they were servicing their needs or addressing their needs through the physical stores have been, overhauling their mindset and joined the rest of us in the digital economy. And again, I don't think that we will revert to having stores the way we used to have them before COVID struck. And you can already see the pattern in Europe here where I am, but also I think across the United States and in many parts of Asia. Stores will have to be, lightweight and very specific. Of course, flag stores will be staying, but everything else will have to be re-engineered, redesigned. There will be a great attention to the P&L, to the bottom line, because even listed companies will have to factor in as I say, those tectonic shifts that have been caused by the advent of the 21st century for good. So this is how I see it for the moment.
Yeah, well, even like the idea of hyper localization, right? So if a store has to reduce its footprint, as an example, doesn't mean that inventory is lost. Instead, inventory can be shifted to, say, a headquarters or to a different facility, where it's then easier to be distributed out to people within an hour or two, or whatever the time frame may be, rather than walking away with it from the store. Which changes that experience. If you do go into a store, right, it continues that feeling of buying online, but being in the store, however you want to see it, you can still get what you need in store or online fast. And in terms of fashion consolidation, on the public side, we saw limited brands make some moves. We've seen Tiffany's and LVMH make moves. We've seen more consolidation of clothing companies that I'll hold off on naming, which was already in the works before this all began. But again, it was accelerated, and we've seen new brands pop up that fit the fashion trends or fashion ideas going forward to the future. And one thing I do want to bring up around Asia that you mentioned is we're here right now on November 4th. And in terms of Asia, you brought up the number of those in Asia that just started buying for the first time online. We are 7 days, so 1 week from Singles Day, the largest shopping day globally every year in the world. That's November 11th, 11/11. It's a big, huge event that was started, I believe, by Alibaba and Jack Ma, and has continued to be a bigger trend with all of those in the world. But what's going to happen then? Here in the States, we see Black Friday or Cyber Monday or the likes on a regular daily basis as retailers are trying to keep that pace, to your point of shopping. What's going to happen with Singles Day? There's a huge opportunity. I don't know if you have any insights, but I wanted to bring that up as well around fashion, because it's going to be a huge buying day. So I don't know if you want to add anything else onto that, Gianpaolo, before we go over to Julio.
No, well, I mean, as I say, it's been a weird year. Even that experience might occur in maybe in an abnormal way this year. But I mean, those are spikes. We are taking a look at the trends, and we are acting on the trends and not on the momentary spikes, like on a Black Friday or on a single day. So, but of course, I mean, it's fascinating to see how consumer behavior is changing. Taste, preference are changing. And this forces the manufacturers and the distributors to really veer on a stamp, turn on a stamp, because they have to completely redesign, re-engineer, which is not easy. I mean, we've been addressing in different panels, the reshoring, onshoring, the calculation of the inventory. I mean, they will have to match make the correct size of the inventory with the adoption of the digital transformation and artificial intelligence and the new consumer behaviors models that they begin to emerge out of the pandemic. So it's going to be a tall order particularly for the manufacturers. And of course, the best and the strongest will be in a good position to play Pac-Man and buy a lot of their smaller competitors. But also I want to leave a glint of hope for the smaller companies. If what we're seeing in the food industry and in the beverage industry is any lesson, I think that even in the fashion industry and in the cosmetic industry, we will see the equivalent of the microbreweries coming out and offering, niche services and products tailored to smaller communities, but maybe affluent communities that are ready to pay premium for that particular product. So I think it will be quite fascinating to see how the whole sector reorientates itself in a cellular way as to address really the cellular needs of the cellular society, which is entirely different, from the bricks and mortar society that some of us were born in, and in these big behemoth of companies that were with their physical presence on the streets. Obviously, this has been now translated online, so there are still gigantic companies, but the game is different. And anyway, the barriers of entry are, I would say, lesser than they used to be when we were working in an entire bricks and mortar environment. So it leaves a lot of space for new entrants that have the ingenuity and the creativity to blend together technology, early on adoption of new methodologies, and a sensible approach to capital raising. I mean, it leaves a great opportunity, I think, for those founders that are capable of adapting to the new reality.
Absolutely. And Julio, to you, same question around not just the big trends as and blips on the map, but the bigger trend picture, as Gianpaolo mentioned, but then also where you're seeing technology play a role in all of this, given your investment thesis and where you're focusing as well.
Sure. Well, for fashion, inventory, I think that the big difference between the 21st century and the 20th century approach to business, I think, is inventory. I think that people in the future will look at the 20th century and say, wow, so many resources were devoted to creating the inventory, managing the inventory, moving the inventory around, without it being sold, right? It was just production. It was production almost for the sake of production, to try and push product down to the consumer, and entice that consumer in a store required a lot of inventory. And so every time you see, whether it's a cosmetic or a new coat or a television, it's resources that have been put to use for that particular purpose, without any real sense of whether there was going to be sold or not. And you know, the fashion industry is famous for suffering from a very large carbon footprint, because every season, if something doesn't get sold within a couple of weeks at a store or within a couple of months, then it has to be marked down, and then they have to get rid of it in a way that wasn't really intended, just because they had to fund those few sales with a lot of inventory, you know, to be ready for the customer to take it home. So the pandemic and technology have made it so that the consumer, the pandemic also almost did a favor to the fashion industry and to everyone, in that it has made the consumer not expect inventory delivery immediately at the point of sale. It has opened the door for people to operate in a situation where you place an order for something, you pay for it, and then you don't really get it until several days later. And people think that's normal. People don't think, you know, that's just obvious. It takes time for you to receive your good, but now people are used to that. On 11/11, there may be a lot of people in China who sign up to get something, but I think that or in Black Friday, they pay for it first. You know, that's an amazing victory on the part of efficiency and industry, that you get the customer to pay you for something that they don't have yet. It was considered almost an insurmountable problem, but now it's become normal. And in part because people, you know, they don't want to go out, they don't want to get sick, or it's more convenient to receive things at home, and you can wait. So we've invested in a couple of companies that really are focused on on-demand manufacturing, with fashion designs that work so that you can manufacture from scratch a garment within those 3 or 4 days that the consumer still thinks is perfectly normal. You don't have to have the garment made and waiting in a warehouse if you can make it immediately to suit your order. And that's I think a huge innovation on the part of the 21st century, which happened either because it's more efficient or simply because we had a pandemic or we had other factors happen and made the consumer change its mind. So now stores should have a lot less inventory. They'll even if you have stores, they'll be more like the concept of a pop-up store, the concept of like a showroom where you can come in and maybe try out a few things, but at the end of the day, you're still
that reduced footprint that
reduced
follows.
Reduce footprint, in terms of the real estate of the store, and reduce footprint in terms of the amount of inventory that you have to manufacture and that you have to have stored somewhere, right? So, fantastic opportunity. We were investors in a company called Katla. I think I can probably show you here at least their, that's them, Katla.com. Katla is a brand. It's a US company named after a famous volcano in Iceland, pictured here. There's many volcanoes in Iceland have exceedingly long and difficult to pronounce names. However, there happens to be one called Katla. So what a fantastic name for a brand, only 5 letters. And absolutely 100% of their inventory has not been made when the customer, through their website, puts in an order. And it's a line of casual. It's very difficult to make an on-demand full business suit, but it is quite possible to make sweatshirts, t-shirts, slacks, casual jackets of sizes that don't have to be so precise. You can have a situation where you can manufacture the garment. You do have to have the fabric though. So, but at least, you know, Katla has gone from only having to have fabric and then actually manufacturing the garment only when they have an order. And when that, and then they can trace the order, and they can be as efficient as possible in the delivery. But at the end of the day, there's a plant in the southern U.S. in Alabama, and that's the plant that makes the garment and ships directly to the consumer. So unless someone's paid for it, it doesn't get made, and that results in huge savings in terms of cotton, in terms of energy, in terms of thread, you know, anything that you need to make a garment. So that, you know, I think that that's where there's opportunity. But then when you talk about fabrics, there's also opportunity there, because today fabrics are all, you know, they have to be made, and they have to be made of cotton. They're usually made of cotton or silk. But there's a lot of research about companies or being conducted by companies right now to develop fabrics from slightly different ways. And we've invested in a company called Simply Fiber. Maybe I could show you something about it. But, you know, Simply Fiber is working on having fabrics made of plants, but not necessarily cotton. They can take almost any cellulose. It's this one. They can make fabric out of cellulose. They can take any plant, grass even. It's a technique a lot like fiberglass. You can mush it up. You can create this, you know, I guess it's like a paste, and then with a mold, you can stamp a form onto the paste, and then it dries. So think about making a t-shirt, but you don't have to actually weave the t-shirt by putting cotton string and creating that weave that makes the fabric. You can just press it down, and so you have the entire front of a t-shirt made in one swoop without having to make the fabric. You just create the plant and make, and then you have the back of the t-shirt made, and you can glue the two pieces together, and you can have a you know, a t-shirt made of two halves that have been made of this material.
Which Julio, I want to jump in real quick. I mean, these are great innovations that some of the companies you guys have invested in terms of technology and seeing that combination. But real quick, I want to switch gears as we're coming to close here. Actually, we're at time. I want to come to each of your closing thoughts. Apologies for a short episode today, but I want to come to each of you on your closing thoughts as where these industries go. So Gianpaolo, I want to come to you, and actually Julio, let's start with you since you ended, and we'll finish with Gianpaolo. Where is the next step? Where does fashion and beauty go from here over the next 10 years? In short, quick closing thoughts, and then a close word.
Yeah,
can
well,
everyone find you online?
Definitely, I think the trick will be in playing some magic by blending together, you know, the use of technology, the capability of big data analytics, because this will redesign exactly the profile of the customers to a level which is unprecedented in terms of details, because we can have so much information and we can elaborate so much information on our customers as I say, to a level that was unprecedented until very recently. There is a bottleneck in the industry that, and again, we have to look at other industries. This bottleneck will still keep the level of inventory high, and this is the rate of utilization of the industrial equipment. The automotive industry, we produce in the world on a yearly basis about 100 million automobiles, but the world demand for cars is only about 70 million or so. So there is an oversupply and overcapacity, about 30 million vehicles sitting in a parking lots of the factories of the main car makers in the world. And this is why, because, you know, the equipment has to keep molding and producing. You cannot just turn it on and off. Of course, technology may give us some, you know, incremental innovation whereby we will be able to use the equipment in different manners and maybe marginally keeping as efficient as it was when it was used continuously. But we are not there yet, although technology is definitely going in that direction of having the capability of doing, on and off and really produce inventory on the actual demand. But until we reach that level, I think we will see equipment being utilized for producing, and the inventory will be stockpiled just because it's cheaper to stockpile that excess inventory than shutting off the industrial equipment. So, this is very fascinating, and I think it leaves possibilities for investors to take a closer, harder look at that particular subsector and see if there are interesting investing opportunities and consolidation opportunities. So thank you again.
Wonderful. And Gianpaolo, where can everyone find you to continue the conversation as well?
Well, you can find me on LinkedIn, or you can find me on my personal website at gianpaoloparigi.com, or reach me via email at gianpaoloparigi1@gmail.com. Thank you again, Kyle, gentlemen, ladies, everyone. Julio, pleasure to see you here.
Thank you, Gianpaolo. Julio, to you, super quick closing thoughts, and then where can everyone find you and NY Bay Capital as well?
I mean, where is the industry going? I think that I don't want to limit that with a comment. I think that if you are an entrepreneur and you have an idea and the idea somehow relates to beauty, fashion, call me, call us. If we can't help you directly with capital or advice, we may know somebody who can. And it's always in the best spirit of making sure that there's progress, that we put people in touch with each other without expecting anything in return. We just, will help connect. That is the point of VCTV and LATOKEN. And so happy to do that. Any interesting idea that will make things better, that'll make things more efficient, that'll make the bottom line grow for any company, probably has something in it that is worth examining. So to get a hold of me, New York Bay Capital, we have our website, nybaycapital.com. And my email there is julio@nybaycapital.com. I'm also on LinkedIn. Look me up as Julio A. Marquez, just because there are a few Julio Marquezes in the world. But Julio A. Marquez, if you throw in NYBay or if you say something like that, you'll be able to find me. Happy to connect that way or through email. But best of luck to everybody, and see if you can get some, get something advantageous out of this interesting situation that the virus has caused.
Absolutely. And all, thank you very much for sharing your thoughts and insights on today's episode around fashion, beauty, and where things are going and where things will be in the near future from both of you. Also, a big thank you to your audience for tuning in. If you like what you heard, click subscribe, give us a thumbs up. Do reach out if you'd like to be on a show like Gianpaolo or Julio today. We'd love to have you share your thoughts and insights as well and join them on future panels. Also, if as an entrepreneur you would like to be on a show like today's, thanks you, Gianpaolo. Please do reach out to the team and or myself. We'd love to find the right set of investors for you to join our virtual stage, to pitch us, to get real-time feedback, build foundational relationships with us, and also get exposure to our live audience. Do reach out to the team and or myself, and we'll find the right set of investors for you. A big thank you to the LATOKEN team and to Maria. Thank you, Julio, as well, to making VCTV possible every single day. With that, I'm your host, Kyle Ellicott. You can find me along with our investor guests today everywhere online, 24/7, 365. Find me at Kyle Ellicott on all social media. With that, I'm your host. We'll see you back here tomorrow for more VCTV. Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you, LATOKEN.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Thank you.